Welcome Ms. Ann Burr and Ms. Noelle Scott to the podium.
All right, well, good evening and Happy New Year to everyone. Last year I came before you and I presented several possibilities for growth within our arts programs in Cabarrus County Schools, and I'm delighted tonight to give you an update on these programs and the impact for our students. We talked about last year why the arts are important, and we believe in Cabarrus County Schools that we have a responsibility to develop the whole child. We also believe that the development of creativity, critical thinking, and collaboration are valuable skills that transfer to being college and career ready. Our top 3 goals from last year were to offer 6th grade band at every middle school as a year-long course, to offer a pilot beginner dance program at one high school, and to begin a feeder program for an orchestra program between C.C. Griffin Middle School and Central Cabarrus High School. Our data for 6th grade band, you can see that all of our middle schools are offering 6th grade band as a year-long class. The range of participation is from 27 to 129 students. I did inquire about Concord Middle School's numbers being as low as they are, and I was told that they felt that they had done a good job of recruiting last year at the elementary level, but that the cost of band was prohibitive for some parents to commit to that for 6th grade, and so they felt like that's why their numbers were lower. However, they were very happy to report that the 27 students that were involved were really performing at a very high level, and the band director was very pleased with that. So you can see that we have some schools, Harris Road Middle School and Hickory Ridge Middle School, that have extremely large numbers of students in 6th grade band, and this does not include the 7th and 8th grade numbers, so we have a tremendous load for that one particular band director at those particular schools. Altogether, 609 students are receiving an additional year of talent development and will be better equipped to advance in the high school when they get there for band. I'm always very interested in hearing about the stories behind the numbers, and so our middle school band director sent me some comments that their students had made about the value of having 6th grade band this particular year. And the comments were very similar in their excitement about being able to participate. But the one that particularly caught my eye was from a parent, and this was an unsolicited comment, so I thought it was valuable for us to take the time to listen to that. And the mom is saying that my daughter was allowed to share how she felt about 6th grade band, and I also wanted to add my comments as a parent. She has never loved school. She goes and she does what is required of her. She has never been a behavior problem. She participates and does her homework. She even takes honors math, but she has never had a love of school until this year. She loves band. I'm impressed watching her go from an awkward-looking and unpleasant sounding to more graceful in form and sound with her flute. This confidence and love carries over to other subjects. Thank you for allowing her the chance to grow. And once again, that is an example of the power of the arts and the positive impact that it has on our students. In looking at another first-year program, dance, you can see that Cox Mill High School has a total of 75 students that are enrolled for credit this year. Another 17 students are participating in dance from Harris Road Middle School. Those students come before their school day starts at Harris Road Middle. They arrive by car or either by bus to Cox Mill to be able to participate in dance before their school day begins at Harris Road. So once again, that level of excitement and opportunity for students is just something that we should feel very proud of this year. In terms of a parent, once again, there's another comment from a parent about how this has really been such a positive change and such a positive experience for their child. And for time's sake, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I will read a portion of it. It says she is much happier and looks forward to the dance class and even discusses what she is learning without being prompted. There is no question that she is more self-confident, getting better grades, and works better with her peers. It is our hope that the dance classes will continue to be offered, not only as a support to band, but to give students an opportunity to pursue an art form that benefits beyond the dance classroom. And that's just another example of the power of the arts. This particular picture shows the class in action. And I was asked to talk a little bit about the cost of starting the program because I think there's an idea of how much it actually costs, and we want to communicate out the actual cost of starting this program. The floor itself is reclaimed wood. It was reclaimed from Northwest Cabarrus High School when they got a new basketball floor. This floor was repurposed and used for the dance floor at Coxmill High School. All together, and this was given to me by Lynn today, Mr. Wiki, in terms of the cost. He said that the materials for the dance program were $19,000, and the labor was $19,500 for a total of $38,500 for the startup of this dance program. In terms of the teacher, I confirmed with our finance director, Kelly Klutz, that no additional money was given to Coxmill for the hiring of a teacher. So it all came from within their allotment. In the future, I mean, it would be wonderful. I think we have tremendous level of interest and excitement of extending the program, and I know that would have to go through the budgeting process, but I do think there's a lot of interest in making that become a reality. Our last program, our new program, is our strings program. Central Cabarrus High School has 76 students that are enrolled for credit. C.C. Griffin has 14 8th graders that are taking it as a class. And then the 7th grade enrichment block rotation is a total of 200 students that throughout the course of the year receive 6 weeks of exposure to strings along with other cultural arts opportunities. So the comments from Mrs. Bullock and Mrs. Reimer have been extremely positive about how this has just influenced their entire school and how happy and proud they are to have this program within their school, and that they feel like the level of interest for growth at both of these schools is exceptional, and they both feel like they need a full-time person there in order to meet the needs of the students. Some of the comments that came in from the string students were quite interesting. Many of them said they took the class first of all as a curiosity, but boy, had that curiosity led them to a place where they have a love for strings instruments, and it will become a lifelong passion for them. The comments they've written here just speak volumes. It says, actions speak louder than words, and music expresses ideas that words simply are unable to do. Strings has provided me with an experience like no other. It was wonderful. He is doing a phenomenal job in getting that program ignited. The next picture, these pictures are from the inaugural concert that they had in December. It was simply amazing, and the evening ended with a standing ovation from the entire audience. They performed music that should have been performed by students that had 2+ years of training. It was simply amazing. So we have good news for our programs, the 3 programs that are off the ground. They're all successful and moving forward, and everyone is very delighted to have those opportunities. So where do we go from here in terms of strategic planning? One of the most important things that I feel that we can do is to design a framework of support that will give our visual and performing arts teachers the resources they need to shoot for the stars, to be excellent, to be superior. That's what we're looking for in participation and in performance. I have broken down some of our goals into our different areas, and you're going to see some very, very common themes with each of these areas, but I did want to target a few of them. One of my primary goals for the arts program is to develop partnerships with experts in the field so that our teachers have resources that will improve their work and in the classroom. For band, for marching, concert, and jazz band, we have Dr. Sean Smith from UNC Charlotte and David Starnes from Western Carolina University, who are both experts in their field, and they are partnering with our band directors to strengthen our music programs. Our instruments need upkeep. So we have a plan to provide maintenance on a rotational basis to our schools so that, once again, the tools that they need are in a condition that is what students need in order to be able to perform at a high level. We're working very strongly between programs, between middle and high school, with that vertical alignment, making sure that foundation of knowledge is established so that as they move to high school, there isn't a retraining, it's simply a continuation. And we're promoting participation at both regional and national competitions for our students. In addition, we're working on curriculum design, which means there's an equitable and viable curriculum in Cabarrus County Schools for not just the academic areas, but the performing and visual arts areas as well. Chorus looks very similar to band with a lot of the very similar needs and things that we plan to do as we move forward. But I want to draw your attention to the work that we're doing with the Cabarrus Arts Council. We have our chorus programs have been doing community outreach where they go and they do live performances on the steps of the historic courthouse for an open audience, and then in return they are given access to the galleries and have a tour, and so it's a win-win for our community and for our chorus programs to be able to take advantage of the arts resources that are within our downtown area. In theater arts, we're working with Dr. Beth Murray from UNC Charlotte. She has been working with our theater teachers since May, and both the theater teachers and the students have been able to go to UNCC to have some behind-the-scenes experiences in technical theater, something that they normally would not be able to do at the high school. And they've had a chance to dialogue with college-level theater students and professors. Visual arts, once again, we are very grateful for the partnership with the Cabarrus Arts Council. They have donated over 700 pieces of art to our schools to use in their programs, which is tremendous, and they've helped me to coordinate local artists to be resources to our teachers so that they can have, people coming into the schools to support what they're doing. And in all of these programs, we really want to celebrate excellence and recognize our students for the good work they're doing. The last picture is actually from December, and these are photos that were taken from our choral groups that were doing performances at the Cabarrus Arts Council, and we have featured here Concord Middle School and Mount Pleasant High School. And once again, it was live performances, but we were it was just wonderful to have our students showcased in such a positive way. Do you have any questions about any of the information I shared this evening?
Thank you very much, Ann. That's a wonderful presentation, and I'm sure that we will have plenty of comments, and we're going to start with Mr. Walter.
Well, I'm lucky enough to have one of those sixth grader band students over at JM Free is playing the tuba for the first time. And band is actually his favorite class as well. Mr. Partridge over there is a wonderful instructor. And again, I think it's a wonderful program that we have. I've been to several of the arts programs that we've had this year. The strings program that was just a couple weeks ago, the all chorus, that was fantastic over at Robinson High School. And then again, just a couple weeks ago with the opening personally over at the airport, our inaugural flight celebration, we had Harris Road Middle School come out and do some caroling for our folks that were departing for the first flight, so that was excellent as well. An opportunity for them to get out and showcase their skills to the public. But again, I think the partnerships is key here, to continue to do that, not only for instructions, but for sponsorships or whatever. Really, those were my comments. I think it's a wonderful thing that we've been doing. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Walter. Ms. Carpenter?
Well, I want to thank you for all that you do. And as we've said many times, we want to teach all, the whole child. And as Rob had mentioned, I've been to many of the events. The event that was held over at Robinson, it was wonderful. Those children were just, it was outstanding. I was so impressed, and it was from all the schools. And to hear them it just enlightened me. Oh, it was just great. I enjoyed it so much. I'm sorry I missed the strings, because that was something I have said for years and years. I originally had went to school over in Mecklenburg County. I started violin when I was in the 4th grade. So that was something that I was so happy when we saw this being able to do it in our system.
Fantastic.
So I was very, very pleased. So I played violin from the 4th grade all the way through the 11th grade. So I was very pleased to see it. So I'm sorry I missed the performance of the strings, because it teaches so much, not just how to play, but to read music, a lot of different skills. It helps the child not just on that, but in the child's learning of many things, math skills, a lot of different things, and I know that from past experience. So when the arts touches the child in so many different ways, and I know from personal experience also that when you look at this, there's so many children that can excel in the arts where they cannot excel in any other thing. So this is very, very, very important. And I want to thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
And what you're doing for the children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. Mr. Shoemaker.
Well, Ms. Burr, I know that you've been busy, and this is, fall is a really busy time of year for the arts, because the bands are playing and everybody's getting really a lot of exposure. I really appreciate the way we've been able to integrate the Arts Council into our process, and helping not only the children that do the visual arts, which when you go to the Arts Council and through the galleries, that's what you basically see is the visual arts piece, but integrating in with the chorus and the strings. And I'm really glad to see that the strings is coming along really well. I mean, who would have expected us to be using the strings at this level when we approved it last spring to purchase the instruments, and we've come a long way already, and I'm really excited about what that holds for the future, and where our symphonic bands and those types of bands will go, because I guess going into the winter and spring we'll be doing more symphonic band activities, so I'm really looking forward to attending some of those concerts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shoemaker. Mr. Shue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think you've done an excellent job. We've come a long ways. I can remember back when we were talking about this, and to see it, actually in place, and to see the students in place. And the thought just came to me, and it has many times, but it come to me again tonight as we was listening to your presentation. You never know what a child can do until they get the opportunity. And that's where we come in. And that's, something that I'm proud of, to see that we did the dance. And I wish Mr. Wicke was here so I could brag on him a little bit. The floor turned out beautiful.
Beautiful.
And to use reclaimed wood for that, I don't know what that would have cost us had we not used that, but it would have been, I'm sure, considerably more. But it turned out good, recycling those things. And to see that we've got 75, 76 students enrolled, and then the ones that go before school. Now, the question that I had, in reference to the dance was, they obviously won't get credit for that, but they'll have like first dibs when they get to high school. Is that right?
Are you speaking about the Harris Road Middle School
Right,
students?
the Harris Road Middle Schools, that they're doing it now.
Yes.
They don't get credit for that.
Right.
But they're going to, when they advance to the high school level, then they'll, of course, get in it.
Absolutely.
And they'll have just that much of a more advantage on the ones that don't do it. So that's
Absolutely.
good,
That is
on
good.
that part. And then on the strings, it's wonderful, that we're doing that. On the other program there, I'm trying to think, I'm ad-libbing, as you can see. I didn't
Sixth
write
grade
anything.
band.
Yeah, the band. And the reason you said Concord Middle, it was some type of a burden maybe on the parents. What could you tell us what the middle school cost per band student is, somewhere thereabouts?
I don't have that
how
information.
that relates to the high school as well,
I know there's a rental fee, and I think the rental fee is based. It can be varied based on the instrument the child chooses. So I can research that I don't know that answer tonight, but I'm sure there is a monthly fee that would require a student to commit to.
Right, okay. Well, I know that obviously there are some fees, but if it was, an exorbitant amount, $600, $700, $800,
Right.
per year, I could see where that definitely would have an impact on pretty much most families, middle and high school. And that would be, hard, but then again, you see by the numbers we have, 609, I believe it was, that are enrolled, but Concord Middle was low for whatever reason. I don't know, but I, for one, would like to see what those costs are and
Okay.
how that maybe compares with maybe even surrounding school districts, just out of my own curiosity. I don't want you to do a lot of work on it, but it would be interesting to me to find out, is Cabarrus County Schools in line with neighboring districts for band participation? And is middle school higher or lower than high school? And maybe the reason why, But I'm very supportive of the fine arts, and I thank you so much for Miss Scott being here. You do so much for Cabarrus Arts Council, and I don't get to tell you often, but I surely appreciate all that you do. And thank you too, Miss Burr.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shue, and I would be remiss if I didn't echo the thanks to Ms. Scott. And we the ones of us that were at the commissioner meeting got to see a very nice video of all that the Arts Council is doing in Cabarrus County, and a lot of that trickles down, and the schools involved, and it's just a good partnership. So thank you for your hard work and effort. Mr. Harrison.
And again, just adding on to the other compliments the other board members have given to yourself and the council, as well as the teachers and staff involved in the arts. It's a great program. It does a great service. It's going to sound like I'm talking about something different all of a sudden, but the other day Mr. Fail was talking with us about math scores, and somehow we came up with a conversation that the arts, and especially music, segues well or impacts or augments students' math skills over time, certainly. And as an educator, you probably know that better than many people do, but I would really love to see some really good data on how, especially the musical arts,
Right.
affect and improve students' math performance
Okay.
over time. That would, to me, would be very interesting, because it would, prove another side of the value of the arts, I think.
Very good.
But your passion is infectious, and I'm sure the students have a great deal of respect for yourself and your other peers teaching
Thank you.
all these different programs to the students, and you're making a great impact
Thank you.
on their lives.
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Dr. Phillips?
Sorry, I beg your pardon. Just one other thing. Mount Pleasant Middle also seems to have, say, 37 students, somewhat like Concord Middle. I apologize, Dr. Phillips. And if we could, in time,
Research.
research the possibilities of boosting up those numbers,
Sure.
those locations, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't really have much else to add upon what everybody else has said, except perhaps to say that to address the financial burden of participation in band, maybe that's an opportunity for us to solicit sponsorship from outside parties who would like to sponsor a child in participating in band. I also just want to say to you personally, launching one of those projects is a magnificent accomplishment. To have 3 in the same year with such success is just spectacular, and we're very lucky to have you. It's an indication of the quality of the staff that we have here in the Cabarrus County Schools.
Thank you very much.
And then my final point is that I know we've been accused by some of building Taj Mahals recently, and but I don't think that I've never been to Taj Mahal. I've been a lot of places, never been to Taj Mahal, but I don't think it was made from a recycled gym floor.
True. True.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. And again, I don't want to take up a lot of time, but just want to echo what the board members have said. It is tremendous of what we've taken on and the performance that you guys have been able to do. If you will indulge me, just very briefly, I'm a big believer, as I believe Mr. Shue said, of having opportunity, and that's part of what we have to do, is find kids that otherwise wouldn't have an opportunity to do something and see if it's something they want to do. I love, this is maybe too far off the path, but I love golf history. I read about it a lot. I do. It's just something I'm passionate about. But because of litigation and liability, there's things that used to happen that don't really happen anymore. And there were two young men that grew up at the exact same time in Fort Worth, Texas, whose families were, they just were one was a farmer and one was a blacksmith. They were poor kids. But because there was a golf course nearby, they started caddying. And because of that, they grew in two of the greatest champions that we've ever known. And Byron Nelson had a ticker tape parade in New York City due to his golf accomplishments, which is, it's mind-boggling to think about some kid from Fort Worth, Texas. The other one was Ben Hogan, who survived a horrific car accident. If you've never seen the picture of the car, look it up. How anybody lived is phenomenal, but he and his wife both lived. But they started as a caddy, and the point being, there was an opportunity to do something that they never, ever would have had, but they walked across the street and begged a guy to give them a job. Well, we don't have anybody doing that, but we do have kids that never, ever would be able to hold a violin or a cello or a string instrument in their hand, and we've given them that opportunity. And it thrills me to no end to be able to provide that opportunity to let somebody that may turn into somebody that plays on Broadway or in a marching band at college or whatever the case may be, or in a play. You just never know what passion is going to be stoked. So I'm thrilled that we've got the program, and I apologize for the long-winded statements, but thank you very, very much for your efforts and your work.
And I'm going to invite Noelle Scott to come up now. She's going to speak to you for just a few minutes. Thank you again.
Great, thank you. Welcome, Noelle.
Thank you so much. It's so exciting to see all the new things that are happening in the arts here, and thanks so much to Dr. Shepard and to Ann Burr and to each of you for your support and your understanding of how important the arts are to each of our kids. I did want to just bring a PowerPoint to show you all some of the visuals from our performances that we bring in to your students every year. If you remember, back in 2000-2001, we started a wonderful partnership with Cabarrus County Schools and Kannapolis City Schools to bring the arts, performing arts, to every single child, K through 12. And it's been just a remarkable partnership. And I just want to take a few moments to show you all some of the visuals from the audiences that saw these shows the last year and what they're seeing this year. So let me see how I do this. There we go. Good. In the elementary schools, every child in every grade sees a performance. We pair them K1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so they can be somewhat curriculum related. Our real goal that we decided with you all as educators years ago was to get every form of the arts, performing arts, in front of the students during these years. So last year, we brought our kindergarten rock star, Roger Day, grades K through 1. Here are some of the visuals from those shows, and I wish each one of you all could come and see, because the kids just love him. This year, we are bringing Trout Fishing in America. It's the first time that we've brought this group in. We've been wanting to bring them in for years. They're outstanding. They're a folk rock duo, and they will entertain the students. Last year, for grades 2 and 3, we brought Amber Brown Is Not a Crayon. And here are some of the scenes from that show. This year, we are bringing back Opera Carolina for the first time in several years. They will be performing The Three Little Pigs. One of the things I love about bringing the opera to these students is that they don't even know they're listening to opera, and they will not be like so many adults of our ages are that want to go running in the opposite direction, they really learn how much fun it is. They bring a very memorable tale, like Three Little Pigs, put traditional opera music to it, and the children just love it. Last year, we also brought Soul Street to grades 4 through 6. They were a phenomenal group. We've been looking for street dancers to bring in, and every single one of these dancers had a story about how his or her life was really kind of going down the wrong path, and then they discovered dance, and it really turned them around. And they, as you can see, brought a lot of your students up on the stage with them. Grades 4 and 5, Arts Power from the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler will be coming this year. And grade 6, Transit. They're an a cappella performance. They've already been here. They did a wonderful job. The kids loved them. We really focus in middle school on teaching self-esteem and respecting diversity. It's a great age group to be doing that with. And last year, for the first time, we brought an illusionist, Jason Bishop. That was so much fun because we would take him to the grade 7, and teachers would sneak in to come and see him. He was really pretty remarkable. We also showed him at the Davis Theater. You'll see, he was in the gyms. It was pretty phenomenal because there was no way he could hide anything. And it was, as far as I could tell, it really was magic. Mike Wiley came to grade 8. He is one of our favorite performers, and he performed Jackie Robinson, A Game Apart, last year. He is a phenomenal performer that will sometimes be as many as 30 characters in a single performance. This year we are bringing Theater 4's Buffalo Soldier to grades 7 and 8. This was selected as one of the best American plays for young audiences and was performed upon request at the Pentagon in honor of African American History Month, and we'll be presenting them here. High school programs focus specifically on bringing history and Shakespeare alive to the students. Last year, we brought Mike Wiley again in Brown versus the Board of Education over 50 years later. That's a remarkable performance, and it really encourages a lot of discussion afterwards. Here are some of the scenes from that. You can see in this that he's many different characters, male, female, young, old. I'm trying to move this, Kelly. It's not wanting to move now. There it goes. This year, we brought Shakespeare on Trial back again. This is a company. Jeremy Webb is the primary performer that we found in Canada when we went to a showcase there. And they do a wonderful job of bringing Shakespeare to life for our modern day students. And basically, I'll just close by saying we really are fortunate in this county, and it's so exciting to hear how much you all have going on. And I just like to take this opportunity to thank you for our board and our staff for this wonderful partnership and for making all of this possible for all of your students.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Board members, does anybody have any extra comments they want to make specifically to Noel? Go ahead, Ms. Carpenter.
Questions. Now, Noel, I know that y'all have a grant program that y'all do, correct?
Yes.
And I was just curious, we were looking earlier where we saw these numbers on a couple of our middle schools where they were very low in one of our programs. We were talking, someone said they were thinking maybe it was due to maybe the money of the instruments or something like that. And I didn't know if the grant program, could there be a possibility that the school system could apply for grants possibly to help these children with the fees for these instruments or something?
That is a wonderful question. We would not be able to. These are grants from the North Carolina Arts Council, and we have very specific rules that we have to follow, and we cannot do capital campaigns with them. We cannot purchase or rent instruments and things like that. We do often, like last year, we gave a grant to R. Brown McAllister to bring in a performance to that school. So there are things, there has been a wonderful grant program back and forth with the schools. That I don't believe is something that we could spend the money on, but I will research it just to make sure.
Well, I'm looking at any opportunity.
Sure.
It's going through my mind. Maybe we can get a company to sponsor a child. Anything that we could possibly do to maybe help these children out. I want to give them the opportunity. If they want that opportunity, to have that opportunity. And, when that came to light, I'm thinking, now what can we do to maybe help these children? If they're wanting to participate, I would hate to have that child not have that opportunity, but I knew you did do grants.
Well,
like
one
that.
thing we can work on too, and we've done this in years past with the school system, is do a joint sponsorship of a grant to apply to. Often that's very strong, to have a school system and the local arts council apply together for a grant that would do something like this. So I could work closely with Dr. Shepard or somebody else to try to find a grant source for that.
Well, I would like to see if we could find any opportunities to, because I don't know if the other school has had the same problem, because Mount Pleasant, it could be due to population, because their population is very, is not as big a population as you would see in Concord. So it could be due to the population. Their numbers are down, and it may not be due to the, not having children wanting to participate, or because of the not having the money to do it. But if we could maybe look into that, because again, I would hate to see a child wanting to do it and not be able to do it because they don't have the money to do it. So if you could, I would like to see us look into that opportunity.
Idea.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. Mr. Harrison?
And just as a general idea, I would hope that our policies already support this type of arrangement and collaboration between the Arts Council and ourselves, but if we could consider where our policies could augment and support these types of partnerships, I think it'd be a great idea for the policy committee to consider that kind of thing going forward. Secondarily, having taught tiny little bit of Shakespeare, the curriculum for the Shakespeare on Trial is good stuff. It's age appropriate, but it's solid and it's good material.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Thank you very much for your presentation and the involvement with the schools. It's again, it's just more things to expose our students to, and I think it's wonderful, and I appreciate your hard work and efforts.
Thank you so much.
Okay, board members, I tell you what we're going to do since Kelly is here. We'll just revert back to 3.01 and go from there. Oh, okay. I thought you were doing the update. Okay, we'll just we'll keep that one on the back burner, and we'll just move right on to our Inspire grant and ask Dr. Van Hukelum to come to the podium.
Yeah, sure. Good evening. We've talked a lot about the I3 Investing in Innovation Inspire grant that we received in December. And tonight I just want to give you a brief overview of what that grant entails so you have a little bit more in-depth understanding of what we'll be trying to do with that grant. First of all, we've been calling it the I3 grant because that's the name of the grant funding from the U.S. Department of Education, but our grant is actually called Inspire, and that stands for Infusing Innovative STEM Practices into Rigorous Education. And so here in Cabarrus County, we'll start referring to it as the Inspire grant. I'm not going to go through the entire PowerPoint with you, but I do want to highlight some of the key components of the grant. First of all, as you know already, grants, one of their primary purposes is to inspire innovation and to allow people to take a risk with some money that they wouldn't normally have, and with the hopes that we could scale this up for others. And so that's really the true intention of this grant, is that Cabarrus County Schools, through the course of the next 4 years, would use this money to really develop a K-12 STEM pipeline that could then be scalable for other districts in the United States of America. So it's really something that we should be very proud of, and something that we'll tout around the state, but actually around the country, since this is a federal grant. One of the things we're really excited about and proud of is the exclusivity of the grant. It's kind of like getting into Harvard, right? And so you can see that this grant around the country started with 576 applications. There were 2 rounds of the grant. So first you had to submit a pre-application, and we were selected to continue on, and so we were one of 142 to continue that application process and submitted a more lengthy application at that point. And then 18 different organizations did receive an I-3 grant, and we were one of 2 traditional school systems in the entire country to receive that. So some of the other organizations that won the grant were community colleges, consortiums, nonprofits, etc., and ranging from other things, not just STEM, from special ed to parent engagement to other types of categories. As we've said before, our particular proposal seeks to address the national need to develop an integrated K-12 STEM pipeline that provides a unique opportunity for effective solutions and serve as a model for STEM course content and instructional redesign through PBL, problem-based learning, which we've been doing now for a couple years. Give you some background on the grant. As you know, it comes from the U.S. Department of Education. It does last for 4 years, and starting this month. So we will begin to receive funds from the I-3 grant beginning this month for a total over the 4 years of close to $3 million. It did require that we have some matching funds, and we did a great job getting our matching funds, both in-kind and cash donations, and I'll talk more about that later of who we need to thank and be very thankful for from our partners and foundations. This graphic here really highlights the approach that we're attempting to take. And so the 4 circles are the 4 big buckets that we'll be working in. And I'm not going to go into detail because you've had a chance to see the details of each of those buckets, but I'll just highlight each of those buckets there. First of all, on the left, you'll see the problem-based learning. So this is something we've been working on since the opening of STEM, and it's an instructional approach that puts a problem at the center of instruction, and students attack English, math, science, social studies around that problem, and it gives relevancy to the education for the children. At the top, you'll see we are going to explore and investigate and implement personalized tech-enabled instructional practices. One of the things we're very excited about is that the money from the I-3 grant will allow us to make the K-12 pipeline a one-to-one so that students will have their own device. We're not sure what that device is going to be yet. We're going to do that investigation work with a small committee from each of the schools. It could be a tablet, it could be a PC, it could be a combination of many different devices depending on age appropriateness of the student and the goals of the program. On the right, you have what we call student real-world tethers. And so this part of the grant really focuses on a lot of the outside of school activities and clubs that are really going to draw kids' interest into school, including things like Odyssey of the Mind, Science Olympiad, robotics, things that our students are really excited about and really enjoy working with. And then the last big bucket from the I-3 grant that we'll focus on is high-quality teachers and their development and support. So the grant allows us to hire, for example, STEM coaches at each of the schools. It pays for summer professional development for them so that they can develop great curriculum, great instructional practices, and continue in their journey as STEM teachers. The next several slides I'm going to go ahead and skip because I feel like you've had a chance to look at them. That allows you to take a deep dive into each of the key strategies. But I do want to highlight a couple things after that, and one is this slide here, which talks about our novel approach to STEM education. In particular, the first 2 bullets there on the left-hand side, I believe, really made us competitive for the grant and eventually allowed us to win the grant. We made a conscious effort to engage students early. in kindergarten and in the early elementary years in STEM education, with the hope that they continue on in these fields. One of the things our society is finding is that our students, our graduates, don't want to major in science and math and some, quite frankly, some of the really technical fields that are hard, and they don't want to take calculus and physics, many of our students. And so by engaging them early, we hope that they will continue into those fields after graduation. And then the second thing we did was we reduced the selection bias by placing those two programs in schools that would automatically bring students from low-income and minority families into the pipeline. And so what we do know about research and choice, and we've experimented a lot with choice in this district, is that the people who choose have the social capital to choose, right? We know that from research. And so we intentionally put this program in particular at Coulter and Webb, saying we want to remove that selection bias for a portion of our students so that we have some low-income minority students in that program. And indeed, one of the signs of our success will be how many of those students continue on and go on to J.N. Freeze and then go on to Central and go into engineering and science and become scientists and technicians, etc., through that program. And so that was very intentional. I believe that was one of the hallmarks of this grant. You can see the other ones there. I won't go into detail on the other issues there. I did want to highlight those two bullets. I do want to introduce our grant director. And so you can see some of the grant-funded positions here. And so with us here tonight is Bridget Jones, and Bridget is our grant director. So we're real glad that she's on board, former calculus teacher at Central Cabarrus High School, and most recently has served as their STEM coordinator there. So she's kind of stepping up and will oversee the entire thing. Passionate about STEM education and is going to do a great job for us. So we're glad you're on board. Thank you, Bridget. We'll probably post an interview for the four STEM coaching positions in the next couple months, and so that'll be a new position that we'll add through the grant funding. And then I do want to highlight our partners. And again, as we mentioned earlier, this grant was unique in that it came with a requirement that we raise 15% in matching funds, which is no small task. In a $3 million grant, that's amounted to $450,000. And so in particular, I want to highlight the Cannon Foundation. They gave us a matching grant of $250,000 to make sure that our grant was one-to-one for the entire pipeline. We're going to use that to purchase the devices at J.N. Freeze Middle School. And then the Golden Leaf Foundation gave us a grant for $110,000, and that's going to pay for one of our STEM coaches. And then lastly, the Burroughs Welcome Fund, which does a lot with science education, gave us $50,000. And so those three foundations in particular we're very thankful for. Already wrote them some thank you notes, of course. But as you are out and about as board members and you know people on boards and things like that, I wanted you to be aware of those partnered agencies. The other agencies here will be partnering with us in many different ways, including supporting us with curriculum development, supporting us with dissemination of our findings. For example, the NC STEM Learning Network and VIF International will help disseminate our findings out to their organizations so that our work can be scaled. And then Novations is a company that has given us some in-kind contribution for digital content. Okay, so it's not cash support, but it's in-kind support. And the last thing I want to highlight is our outcomes here, and I'm not going to go through the goals, but the impact studies, because I think those are important. So one of the other things that really made our application attractive is a very rigorous impact study, and you'll see these three are the primary studies that we will focus on. Impact Study 1 is what is called a quasi-experimental design. I had to get a little education on this myself today. So the quasi-experimental design is trying to compare students in the STEM pipeline to students outside the STEM pipeline of the same demographic. Okay, so how do our students in the STEM pipeline do compared to students outside the STEM pipeline in the same demographic? And then the other two are randomized controlled trials, which means we are able to use, because we have a magnet process where students apply and some students get in and some students don't get in, we can study the motivational aspects of STEM education. And we can study the students that did not get in and compare their journey in our schools compared to the journey of the students in STEM education. So those are the two impact studies we'll be doing. And that's all I really wanted to highlight for you. You've been able to look at it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Great. Thank you very much, Jason. And we will have comments from the board, and we'll start with Dr. Phillips.
Can I participate in the NASA summer camp?
Come on. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
That sounds great. No, I really don't have any questions. I will just echo what I echoed to Ann Burr, that this is a spectacular achievement to get this, and I know that you had a lot to do with it, and it, again, reflects the high quality of talent that we have here in the Cabarrus County Schools, and I'm glad you're a part of it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Mr. Harrison.
And also congratulations on all the hard work here. I sent out an email urging some kind of effort to be made to sustain this program. I know the grant program is to, did you say it was to create a replicable model for reuse? And I know that's the primary purpose of it, but we're implementing it here, right, for ourselves. So in the long term, I'm very hopeful that the successes that we can share with the rest of the globe, if we'd like, in this program, that we can make some long-term plans to sustain the program after the funding, or at least this particular funding is used wisely by your team. So again, appreciate all the great work that you're doing here. Looking forward to the long-term implementation of it.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Mr. Shue?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I only have basically one question, Jason, and that is, how long of a process did it take for this grant? I mean, I know obviously it didn't happen overnight, so could you maybe elaborate just for a minute or so on that?
So we started 2 years ago and brought together a team and worked with an outside consultant to draft our initial thoughts and get those on paper. So we applied last year. We were a finalist last year as well. We made the first cut last year as well and did not get it last year. So then we took that feedback from there. So they review the grant, they give us feedback. So we took their feedback, went back to the drawing board and tweaked and revised and made it a stronger application and resubmitted it this year. So.
Well, absolutely a great job. There's no doubt about it. And I was thinking as we were watching this, and I sometimes do my better thinking sometimes, when I see it another time other than what I've already reviewed it. But sometimes, I know you said you sent thank you letters out, and that's great. We need to always do that. But the thought that I had was that I think that we need to do a little better job from a board standpoint and maybe even from a district point of view when it comes to recognition of businesses, organizations, nonprofits, letting them know that we really do appreciate and encourage their involvement in not only this endeavor, but in future endeavors as well. And so what I'd like to recommend, Mr. Chairman, if the board would find the pleasure to do this, is to the North Carolina School Board Association has the business, non-business honor roll. And I would like to submit these companies, the Golden Leaf Foundation and the Cannon Foundation in particular, because they do so much for Cabarrus County. I don't know if the average person really knows how much money the Cannon Foundation hands out on an annual basis to Cabarrus County residents. And then also with boroughs, I think we need to add them to the North Carolina School Board Association Business Nonprofit Honor Roll and submit their names to them for recognition. And of course, I would assume that the board would need to give the okay for that. And if that would be the case, then all we'd have to do is get the addresses, which I'm sure you have.
I do.
And then get that to Miss Monroe, and she can submit it. And at some point in the maybe near future, we'll be able to recognize a representative from those organizations here at one of our board meetings. Because I think that we need to go beyond a little bit more than just a thank you letter, which is all well and good, as I said. That's perfect. It's good. This is just going a little bit more, because that's what they did. They went just a little bit more for us, and I think it would be fitting for us to do the same. That's all I have. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Shue, and yes, I'm in total agreement that they have answered the bell and to help us to get this, and I'm in support of nominating him and sending that off. Does that, I don't know, does that require formal, full board action? Is that something we can put on our, if I get a nod of the heads, can we put it on our consent agenda?
I think you could do a consent agenda, or you can have, a motion to do that.
Well,
But I think if
that's
everyone
where I
agrees.
was headed. Do I have a nod of the heads of consent? Yes, okay. Ms. Monroe, that will be something that we would like to have on our consent agenda for our next meeting. Real quick, so I don't forget, I love the fact that we got turned down and went back. We didn't take no for an answer and came back scrappy and said, well, we can do better. And I don't know, that to me, that's just a good can-do attitude, and I love it. So, Mr. Shoemaker?
Well, I know that your group, that Cabarrus County has been really involved with STEM, not only at a local level, but at a state level. And Mr. Brookert, I believe, was serving on the state committee to help write the guidelines for STEM. Can you give us a little bit of a flavor of where we are on those state guidelines, and how we're actually modeling, I guess, what we're doing at a state what we're anticipating to do at a state level?
Yeah, so one of the things about STEM, and this question came up a lot at the Magnet Fair, was what's the difference between STEM and IB? Because I was able to recite a lot of statistics about IB education around college acceptance and diplomas and all this other stuff. But STEM is an idea, right? It's a concept. So STEM varies widely from school district to school district that seeks to implement STEM. So the state, through the NC STEM Learning Network, which is partnered with the Boroughs Welcome Fund, has been trying to put together a rubric of sorts to kind of guide districts in their implementation of STEM. And Stephen, the API at Patriots Elementary School, was a part of that process, very influential in that and helping writing it. And Bridget, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know, are all of our STEM schools involved in that evaluation process or partnering with NC STEM Learning Network? They will be. Okay. So we'll be a part of that. I would venture to guess we're ahead of the game in that, if we were to rate ourselves. But it is a rigorous rubric that will help us get better at what we do, and will also help to guide other districts.
Will there be a process like with the IB where you have a group to come up with assessment and assess that you're doing what you say you're doing and that type of thing?
I don't think at this point are they looking at that, having an authorization type process?
That's what they do. Yes.
They're going to come out and inspect the schools? Yeah. Bridget can answer that.
What they do is they have you fill out they have a rubric. You fill out the rubric. You give all your supporting data. A lot of the reason that we're not doing it this year is because we want to build more partnerships, more business partnerships. So that's something that we're going to achieve next year for sure. And then what they do is they come out and they have a team of educators and community members, business members, and they come to your schools and you show them what you're doing, that what you're doing in your application is actually what's happening at the school.
So this formalizes the STEM process, which, like you said, was an idea, and now it's becoming a very formal idea, and it actually has an authorization type level to it. That's really good. I'm really proud of where you're taking us. I have one other question. There are students that choose to matriculate out of the program. Do we have any statistics on how they actually fare? Because they have been involved with some advanced learning and some different techniques, and that can't be all bad. Even though they come out of the program, they might be still more successful than they would have, or they're probably more successful going back into the mainstream. Are we taking any statistics on that to just see, especially if you're an elementary child decides to go a different direction in middle school?
Yeah, and at this time, we're not tracking that necessarily. So when a student leaves in 5th grade to go back to, let's say, Concord Middle School and not go to Jan Freeze, we're not tracking that child's progress. It's not a bad idea. It does align to that one study that we talked about, that that we know who is in and who is out, so we can track those students. I will say that we've only been in this for 3 years, and one of the primary barriers to students continuing in the process from 5th grade to 6th grade in particular is transportation. And the grant addresses that, so we're hoping to mitigate some of that attrition because we're going to be able to offer some specific transportation for those low-income students.
Mr. Van Houten, I have been tracking that.
Oh, you have? See, this girl's awesome. You want to, yeah, talk to it. Yeah.
I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Okay. What we do at the high school level is if you do not maintain a 77% in all of your STEM courses, we recommend that you go back to your districted high school. So I have been tracking those students that we have asked to exit the program. And what I have found is that, and I can send you the data as well, they're doing about the same level of work, about the C level. And a lot of the students, though, I was surprised to see they're still taking honors level courses. So even though they're making a C, that's better to be making a C in an honors level course than not in an honors level course. So I was happy to see that data. Nobody is failing out. It's just that we have very, very high standards at the high school, and so that's what I've found so far.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you, Mr. Shoemaker. Ms. Carpenter?
Well, first of all, thanks for your hard work. Love to see that. I'm with Mr. Phillips. I would like to attend the space camp too. So let's pack our suitcases. I love space camp. When I saw NASA, I thought, yes, maybe we'll get that planetarium. I'm still working on it. One of the questions I have, though, I'm curious to see approximately, I know it would be a guesstimate, what are you looking at paying roughly for the STEM coaches? Because I see because one of the things it said for one STEM coach 4 years, to pay $110,000 would pay one STEM coach for 4 years, and then you've got $50,000 for one STEM coach for 1 year. What roughly? I know it's a guesstimate, but about what would be the salary for a STEM coach?
STEM coaches will be teacher salary. And so what that $110,000 does is allow us to have a STEM coach for 4 years. Otherwise, we would have had it for just 2 years. So that $110,000, we ballparked about $50,000 to $55,000 with all their benefits and everything included.
So that's what one. I know it depends on how many years they've got in and things like that, but I didn't know what the average salary, would be for one. So you said that's about what one would cost is about $50,000 then, because I noticed the discrepancy there, and I thought, well, how much would it be? Okay. Now, are you still looking for additional grants, though, or have you got your number that you need now for your grants?
We're always looking for grants.
Well,
I'll never say no to money. But we do have, we've met our need as far as we've got almost $450,000 in straight cash, and the rest will make up for it with in-kind donations from various sorts, $10,000 here or there. So we're going to meet the guideline, no problem. Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
And again, thank you all for your hard work, our staff for the hard work, and keep up the great job. I really do.
Well, and I do
appreciate
want to take that. It's not just me working on it. Bridget has done a lot of work with this, and our STEM schools do all the work. So, I kind of throw it out there and we get it going, but they've done all the work and done a great job.
But again, if you need chaperones, me and
absolutely,
Jeff
we'll
are
call you
available.
first thing.
We will be more than happy to put our space suits on and
take a
help with
picture.
those children. Again, and I'll go the research thing for the field trips too. I'm a great chaperone on field trips. Love to do those things, and I know Jeff would too.
Thank you.
Okay, I was with you until you said you were going to put on a spacesuit.
If she can be a bumblebee, she can be a space cadet.
Mr. Walter.
Speaking of that, have you already thought about who's eligible for the NASA camp? Is it middle schoolers, high schoolers? Who gets to participate in that this year?
We haven't worked through all the details yet, and we're not even sure we'll offer it this first summer. It's a lot to get off the ground. We have
It
a lot of
sounds like
summer
it.
activities, so that's one of the first things we'll start working on. But the specifics of a lot of the, so you have the ideas of the grant, and now our next task is to really put legs to the grant, and all these ideas need to take form and create specifics.
Well, I thought it was a great presentation, and I was very encouraged. I went to the magnet fair that we had this last week, and the attendance, the participation of that was outstanding. This coming week, we've got a bunch of open houses for folks it's on our website on when those are, to get more information and to visit those specific schools. And again, I guess the magnet applications are open this month, right to the 31st. Is that how? A couple questions again I had, and it just highlights the effort that's been put in here with our partners. We had less than 30 days to put that matching funds together, and that's really outstanding that they've come through for us to that level. It just shows the support that we have. And another one that was a fun event for me that I attended last month was the paper airplane event that we had for our STEM students over at the Embassy Suites that Terry put together or sponsored. And that's another partnership that we have with the community. And I guess Bridget's working more on getting more partners. And there's just all kinds of opportunities for the community to partner with us with this. The other thing I liked about it was you have measures and goals that we're trying to reach. They're specific. One of those is what STEM attribute implementation rubric. What is that? What exactly was that? Was that? So that is what that was. And then you had said something, I guess, at the Magnet Fair, that the focus that we also highlight careers in STEM, and that's another good part of our program is to show the students what careers there are out there. So again, it's excited. I've got the 2 kids in the STEM program as well, so looking forward to the next couple of years.
Thank you, Mr. Walter. And Jason, thank you very much for your hard work. And it seems pretty obvious that we've picked a very competent and capable person to run the program. So, to jump right in and have the information that Mr. Shoemaker was looking for, that's outstanding. But thank you very much. We're excited about the program. And with that, board members, we are going to revert back to 3.01 and ask Mr. Whitkey to come to the podium for a QSCB milestone report. And by my calculation, we legally will only have 2 more of these because the money has to be spent by April. So we're winding it down in a big way.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are. Basically, I'm looking at most of the things already being wound down. Windows and doors at Central Cabarrus High School. This check was sent out yesterday, rather over the weekend, by our attorneys. 2-party check to the surety, so we're done with that. The Northwest High gym addition, all the paving is complete. I'm not sure if the striping got done. They were trying to get that done before the end of last week. It was. Wow, they managed to stick it in. Very good. So, that basically is 100% complete. We've got a little bit of, very little money in that, and we'll find a sign or something to buy with it, but it's pretty minuscule in terms of the amount of funds left. There's the boiler projects. We're waiting simply for the equipment to come in. It's all been ordered. As soon as it comes in, it'll get installed, and we'll be done with that. And the weight room is complete. The floor is in. And for all intents and purposes, we've got a few minor punch list items, but that project is done as well. We've got some money, I want to say about $4,500 there, and we're looking for ways to utilize those funds. And on the roof at Jan Freeze, had the weather cooperated, we would be done this week. I think we're going to be delayed another week, but we'll be done hopefully by the end of the following week from today. So. That's all good. I mean, I think, like I said, there's little bits and pieces of money here and there. We'll figure out ways to spend them down and complete all the work. So.
Fantastic. Board members, I don't see the need to go up and down. Does anybody have a comment for Mr. Whitkey? Seeing none, thank you very much for that report. And we will move on now to Section 4 of your agenda, and we'll start with budget amendments and ask Ms. Kelly Klutz to come to the podium.
Good afternoon. We have a few budget amendments for you today, not too many. We'll start with our federal budget amendments. And the first one that we have for you is just some additional funds in our IDEA, which is our EC preschool funds. And then we're doing a reclass of our teacher leadership program so that they can be trained in crucial conversations. So that's just a reclass of funds. That's your federal budget amendment. Move on to our capital. This you should be familiar with. There's $1.5 million that was allocated by the county for, it was allocated for the purchase of land, but they're allowing us to use it for land and incidental type topographical studies and those kinds of things. So we're asking them to use those funds for different things as we need those funds. So we didn't specify land. We just put it in there as a new elementary school fund. So that's $1.5 million for that one. And then we have our local special fund, and this is where we record our grants. This was a grant, it's called a Triple P grant from the Cabarrus Health Alliance, and these funds are provided to counselors and social workers trained in the positive parenting program to purchase supplies and materials. And that concludes our budget amendments for today.
Thank you, Ms. Klutz. Board members, we'll start with Mr. Walton. Do you have any comments? Since these are budget items, I want to give everybody an opportunity to comment on them if they so choose.
Yeah, I don't really have any comments. Thank you.
Carpenter, Mr. Shoemaker?
No comment.
Mr. Shue?
I do, Mr. Chair, and that is to the specifics on the land money there. I think that we do need to show that it is for land-related items. And, can you be a little more specific? You said topographical, the land, no design, any design?
We are asking them specifically as we go along. So as we're looking for land, and there may be incidental cost that go along with.
Such as, just curiosity.
Geotechnical reports, one of them.
Those types of things in seeking the purchase of land.
It really is considered due diligence. In other words, if we find a piece of land and we feel that there could be underground tanks buried there, whatever makes sense to qualify or determine before we recommend purchase of property, we'll do. And so we're working with the county hand in hand whenever we come. The last thing, for example, was looking at some survey work, making sure that we have a surveyor in place, ready to go to do that work.
Okay, well, I'm just thinking out loud that, site-related expenses, so that there can't never be any question as to what the $1.5 million was for. It was for land and site-related for the new school. Word it some way where that anybody, not me, but anybody in future boards, for whatever reason, should review a budget amendment for whatever reason. It would be clear instead of $1.5 million for a new elementary.
We track it down to the nth degree. So if it's the categories that we would track as school in any other method, we still track it. If it's engineering, if it's architect, if it's land development, if it's land, we track it the same way. It's just that we've indicated here just this one area so that we don't have to. It would still be all in the same function, and your board approval level is function. It really wouldn't change anything.
I agree with that. The only reason I was saying it would just cut down on confusion for anyone such as myself or another board member down the road for whatever reason would look at it, or a commissioner would look at it and say, what's this $1.5 million for, budgeted for the new elementary school? There's nothing there to tell you. And if you're here, you could tell them. But if you're not here, and Mr. Wickey's not here, and Dr. Shepard's not here, and for whatever reason an auditor wants to see it, then you got it there. There's no need to go looking any further. You've got it there. But that's just a suggestion. It's not something that carved in stone. I mean, I'm one that likes to cut down on questions, and the more information you can provide will help you do that. So that's all I have. Other than that, I'm okay with it.
Okay. So, Well, go ahead, Mr. Harris. I'll come back to that for a second. Mr. Harris.
And maybe we can take it offline, but I too would like some more detail as to what we mean by a new elementary school and how far off into the future we're thinking of using these funds for that purpose. I really just need some more background on this understanding here, and just some greater information as to what is specifically being referred to here. But we can take that offline, and I need to do some studying on the topic. I know we've discussed this amount for land purchase in the past, but I'll just speak with you offline in terms of the background. Thank you.
Jeff, go ahead.
And on the same subject, so where was the $1.5 million parked before you're proposing to move it?
It wasn't. The county allocated in their 13-14 budget, and we just did not budget it at the time, at the beginning of our fiscal year.
Oh, it was not included
It was
in
not
our
included in our budget.
budget that we
Now
approved
we're
in June.
getting closer to needing to use the appropriation, especially with some of the topographical studies and surveys and that kinds of things.
Okay.
So as we approached trying to access these dollars, we needed to get it budgeted.
Yeah, all right, I understand that. The other question I had was about the, it says the total appropriation in current budget, $5,300,000. That, we don't already have that money for a new elementary school.
No. Those are the remaining, what we started out QSCB funds at the beginning of the fiscal year, and
Okay.
any of our other allocated
Okay, so that's
funds.
total capital, it's not
Yes,
just the items for the new elementary school.
Yes, sir.
Got it, okay.
Okay, let's if we can just briefly, we'll revisit if under your description of code where it says new elementary school, to record funds for new elementary school, if we just say to record funds for new elementary school site and site related activity, is that
Certainly.
what you're after? I think that
Certainly.
says a little more about what the 1.5 was for, so I would
Certainly. We
rather
could
it
do
say
that.
that as well. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Ms. Klutz. I don't have any other further comments on that, so we will move on. Oh, can I get a nod of the head for consent agenda? Yes. Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that reminder, Mr. Shue. And we will move on to 4.02, policies and policy revisions, and we will welcome Dr. Chris Louder.
Good evening. I think last time you had one discussion, you had a vote on student records, and then we moved on. So unless you have further questions, I think this will move on to the consent agenda.
I'm sorry. We want to pull 4,700?
I think you already.
I think we
You
already.
already voted on that,
Yeah, I think we already did.
right?
Well, it's still listed on 40, it's listed here, though.
Right. This is second read.
So the others
Okay.
can go on
All right.
consent.
So we want to put all of them on consent with the exception of 4,700 and put that on action. That is, okay, we can do that.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, any other comments? Nope, okay, thank you. The next 4.03, we will ask Mr. Lynn Whitkey come to the podium, and I tell you, I'm going to, Dave, you want to come up too as part of the, I mean, we've talked about this in our subcommittee, and you've been there. It might be helpful if you're already here. We're going to study a facilities study proposal, and welcome back to the podium, Mr. Whitkey.
Yes, I was just going to comment that if Kelly was lacking in description, I've sort of gone overboard, but I felt that I just started writing and I just couldn't stop. So I apologize for the length of my document, but I certainly wanted the board to have as much information as we could provide in terms of what we were proposing. The item one is the document that is near and dear to Dave's and my hearts, and I think to many of you. It really is the assessment of existing conditions in all of the schools. And I attempted to have something sent out to you today. I don't know if everybody got a copy of it. It simply was a section of one of the well, it was a study from Union County, and it was a couple of sections from that particular study. We will send it out formally for next board meeting in case that's needed. But I sent it out simply to give you a sense of the level of detail involved and the fact that it's very comprehensive. And that study is more or less what we based our budget on, looking at certainly not doing the same level of assessment in new schools, as an example. And Union County, I spoke with Don Hughes at length, and I agreed with what he did. He and his staff did the new schools, because our new schools are now a couple of years old, and they have things that come up that need to be addressed, just like anywhere. And we'll be doing those. But the remaining existing roughly 30 schools that are greater than 10 years old are schools that would be encompassed in this study. And we would expect a firm that would be involved to incorporate people who are very familiar with building facilities from the standpoint of more or less if you will, a general construction or architectural perspective, engineers to look at, or contractors to look at the facility systems, and then finally folks who will help address cost estimating for us, because we do want to at least point, it's a snapshot in time, and I think everybody has to understand that. It gives you the issue, the problem, it gives you a recommendation for correction, and a rough idea of cost at this point in time. If we wait 5 years to address that item, we're going to have to build in escalation for the cost. But if we start to address some of those now with our bond referendum, with our standard process of incorporating these as part of the projects in our annual operating budget, these numbers will be very, very meaningful to that process. So that's item one. Would you like to talk about that one first rather than get into the others, because there's sort of a separation of type?
Well, these are, to me, all separate items.
Okay.
I mean, so okay. I think that it would behoove us to maybe talk about each one. It's going to take a little longer, but I think that's better for our board to talk about each one separately.
That's
so, board members, that's the facility assessment study. So we're going to talk about that one first, and we will start with Dr. Phillips.
Okay. So you said that the result of this will be used to help guide our budget requests for facilities maintenance and upgrades.
Yes.
And so obviously, whatever we come up with here is going to have an impact on the county, because they're the ones that we have to go to when
Yes.
we have facilities needs.
Yes, it will.
So what is your plan to make sure that we have buy-in from the county commissioners as to the standards that we want these schools to be assessed against?
I think that we can touch base with them in terms of what we're asking the consultants to do. We would obviously select the consultants internally here, but clearly the county does have a stake in this, and so we'll share some of there's a couple of studies out there that are immediately available to us. We can look at those as examples. When you're looking at existing conditions, they're all pretty similar. It's the nature of how you budget for correction of those problems, and the nature of also what kinds of recommendations you're getting from the consultants. The hope is that, the focus is rather that ideally we're looking at, one, basically taking care of the building and maintaining it from this point forward. There's always going to be the issue of, okay, if the school's 25 years old or if it's 45 years old, should you really be thinking about replacement? That's not what this study's about. This study is really focused on saying, this is the condition of the school right now. And if you want to look at replacement value, then that's fine. But at least you know what it would take to bring this building up to standard for continuing use of the school. And that's the starting point that we need to be at, I believe, so that And in effect, it becomes the capital improvement plan for the Board of Education. Dave has been very diligent in tracking all this information that we've been getting from the schools as we've toured them. We've brought, I think, pretty much up to date all of the things that we had historically into what we are currently using as a CIP or capital improvement plan. But it's nowhere in, to be honest with you, it's not to the depth of this document or the study will be. It isn't simply because we don't have the manpower to do it and the ability to focus on something for this long. Mr. Hughes from Union said that it took them approximately 6 months to get this work done. So it doesn't happen overnight. It's a lot of boots on the ground and a lot of work to be gathered. So.
All right, and it looked like in the example that you sent us from Union County that a lot of the standards were actually taken from DPI.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yes.
you need to have this many square feet per student in your library. You need to have this much for, a number of restrooms for the number of students and so on and so forth. So I think hopefully that, the more that we can tie the standard to a state approved value, I think the stronger the result of the study will be. It'll be very clear as to, all right, you want to have all schools that meet state standards. The second question, and it's my last question, is the $332,000. That's an estimate. Does this go out for bid? What's your plan on this? How will
we've
this?
already, based on conversations with the chairman, we've put an ad in the newspaper on Sunday requesting proposals from firms, and we will treat this like any other consulting effort. We'll gather that information, we'll bring it to our subcommittee for review. Hopefully we'll have several, we've already received calls, so I'm expecting quite a number of firms to respond. And so we'll try and get that down and distill it to a reasonable number of firms that we can present as a short list and hopefully with a recommendation to the board as to who we would suggest hiring for the work.
Okay.
I want to clarify something. I just want to make sure that the new board members know, and Lynn and Carolyn have been through this before, but that's going to be an RFQ. We're not looking for a proposal or a bid. We can only look for their qualifications because it's a professional service that we're soliciting, so that this board would pick a firm based on who we think would do the best job and their qualifications, and then we would negotiate with that firm the work and their cost or whatever. And we just, we just said this, or had this said a little bit ago in the commissioner meeting. If we got to that point and we weren't getting along and couldn't hold hands anymore, we could go move on and pick somebody else. We're not stuck with them, but we got to be careful. It is not an RFP or a request for proposal. We're merely looking for their qualifications. So I just wanted to clarify that briefly.
Okay, all right. Yeah, no, I was just trying to understand the 332, how firm that was, and it sounds like it's.
It was a number based on conversations with architects and also with Don Hughes, and looking at limiting the number of schools to the older schools, not just not all the schools, but like I said, we'll do the newest schools internally.
Right. Okay.
And then that figure was based on a number we felt was reasonable. We may find that people are going, we don't need that much money, we'll do it for less. Or we may find the
crazy
firm saying, we can't possibly do it. A lot of it will have to do with the scope of work and what kind of information we can provide versus what they're going to have to do. And that's the conversation that needs to take place.
Yeah. And I do have one last question. Who's Don Hughes that you mentioned?
Yes.
He's the facilities guy in Union County.
Okay,
Yes,
so they've
excuse me.
had a similar
He's my
study,
counterpart.
and so you
Yes.
worked with him. Okay,
Yes, sir.
good.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Mr. Harrison.
And in the RFQ process, would we ultimately pick a single vendor, so to speak, as opposed to 5 different vendors for these different needs?
Actually, the only one we're doing right now is the first item.
Okay.
Okay. That's
So what is the rollout plan for the other 4 items here?
That's something that we've already solicited general architectural proposals to a what was a general service request, So we do have some architects that are already, submitted for that, and they're capable of providing master planning services. So.
Would we have, I don't know how to ask this question, would we have one holistic set of 5 plans, or would we have 5 disparate plans ultimately? Am I making sense?
These aren't plans.
Well, these are 5 different.
These are just, they're studies and
I'm
documents.
using the wrong words. I do.
Well, I just want to make, you're not talking about blueprint drawings.
No,
because
I understand.
that's not
My
what
fault.
we're talking about.
I apologize.
Okay, yeah,
Would we use more than one
potentially.
company?
Potentially, yes, Mr. Harrison, because for one thing, there's a manpower issue always for firms. Study work usually is done in fairly short spurts. You need a concentrated effort by a good design team. And to be honest with you, I've put enough money in, I believe, in these studies. I want the A teams. I'm suggesting we want their best team on our projects to do this work, to do it in fast fashion, but to do it with the best folks they have. So
I'm just concerned that if we are trying to get and want to, in the long run, have the county's consent and buy-in and agreement to these assessments, working now to make sure all the assessments are consistent would be an advantage to us and would be appealing to the county, especially as we tried to explain the current needs that would be brought up by these different assessments. I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, you are. I just want to clarify, though, that the assessments are sort of the nuts and bolts of it. It's something that every firm knows how to do. The only question will be they're going to ask what format we would like it in. So the assessments are step one of what they'll be doing. The real work comes in the actual strategic planning and master planning of the school. And you wouldn't hire the person or firm that will work on the Glenn Center, to my mind, is not necessarily the firm that would work on Central Cabarrus High School. And
the needs are that, the conditions of those two facilities are that vastly different in terms of?
I believe
okay.
Architectural style, construction type, and need for the school is quite a bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Programmatic need is
okay.
uniquely different. And I would say that's true of the other schools as well. So we would be looking to select the best firm to do the project for each school. Because you really, as I said, there's a special, obviously the people that live and work at that school every day believe that is a unique place, and we do as well. And so we want those firms to have a single project to be involved with, focus on that project and do the job well and quickly.
And when these assessments are gathered, would they be a snapshot in time and then we would implement those needs going forward, or would we continue to engage the company that had that particular contract over time to renew these assessments periodically and update them?
Yeah, that is a question we were talking about with the commissioners. It certainly probably behooves the owner to use the same firm, unless you're really unhappy with the results of the first plan. But ideally, in the case, for example, of Mount Pleasant, we recommend staying with the original firm that did that assessment for us, did that plan. One, they've got all that experience and knowledge of the facility, obviously. But in addition, we felt that the work that they did was very good at the time. We'd like to see them continue. So there's that. But I think in any case, after you've spent a certain amount of money with a firm and you feel that the results you've gotten are valid, I think it's prudent to continue. If it has to wait 4 or 5 years before you can implement, I would go back with that same firm, because they definitely have the leg up on getting it done quickly and effectively.
Are these amounts here essentially what we're trying to budget for fees for a company to produce an assessment?
They are. They will include some engineering from the standpoint that we, in certain cases, for example, Colchin and Central high schools, we envisioned some survey work needing to be done, some site survey work. So there are engineering fees built into some of this as well, simply because of the nature of the study. But the bulk of the monies would be spent on the architects working with their own engineering consultants to develop a plan that really addresses the needs of the school now and for the next 5 to 10 years in the future.
And so item number one here, the facilities assessment for the entire school system would not include any needs for Central Cabarrus or Coltrane Webb or Glenn Center or Mount Pleasant. They would be excluded or broken out for those particular needs of those other facilities, and the $332,000 would be for everything else.
That's correct.
System-wide.
Yes, sir.
With no overlap.
No, and I say we'd be using the same format, so it all sort of gels in the same document if we were to put it together, but they would be being done separately.
Okay. It's another thing I need some more education on.
Well, the reason I'm suggesting that is, and it's the nature of my business. I'm an architect.
And you're an expert at it, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. It's no different than if you went to your doctor and you said, you know what, I had this great exam by Dr. X, and I'd like you to just take that and kind of run with it and go from there. And he's going to say, thank you very much, but I think we need to make an appointment. To do the same thing, perhaps, and that's sort of what architects do. They're reluctant to, because you're asking them to basically tell you something, stamp it with their license attached, and say, that's what I'm telling you is my recommendation. It's hard for them to do that when somebody else has provided the information. So I've included this part of the work so that it's all under one firm, and they won't have any problem or heartburn about that. Thanks.
Great, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Mr. Shue?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a lot to say about this. You know, you got my email. I
Yes,
sent
I
you an email. I don't know, you probably like everybody else, the holidays, you didn't get a chance to get back to me, but
No, and I
you did
apologize
address
for
one of those items on the 10 years and newer buildings, which is a good thing. But after thinking about this since I first seen it on the agenda last week, I concur with this needs to be done at some point. Now, you know, this coming May, 2 years ago, we made a presentation to the commissioners for $180 million, $200 million in facility needs that we knew about based on your staff visiting the buildings. And some things were real obvious and some things obviously were not obvious unless you were someone trained to find those things that they found wrong in the schools. But the problem that I have here, Lynn, is that I'm looking at a big picture, not just the little picture. And this is not a little picture by no means, but compared to the big picture, it is. And that is that, you know, we just left the commissioners meeting, as you know, a little earlier, and we're asking the commissioners for $80 million for schools. And whether we get that or not is all going to be dependent upon the bond, other than that one elementary school. And I think that they're probably leaning favorable to us about maybe doing a cash deal on that, which was what we hoped they would do anyway. That was what our intentions was by having a separate resolution, if you remember. Okay. But that still leaves everything, this is every one of these items here is going to be revolving around whether or not the bond passes or whether it fails. One way or the other, these needs are not going to go away. They're going to have to be addressed at some point. But the way that I'm looking at it, and this is just me, and there's 6 more of you, and you know, we all got our own train of thought, and that's a good thing, you know, because I think it would be bad if we all thought the same thing all the time. We'd probably be in a lot of trouble. But what I'm trying to say is I think that we're probably a little bit early on this presentation, Lynn. I think that just for my own self, I think we need to wait, find out what happens with the bond, and then at that point we can make some decisions. And one of those decisions would be obviously the number one, what are we going to do now after the bond passes or fails? But I'm not so sure also that we should use school board money to do this. I'm not 100% sold on that fact, because this is facilities and maintenance money that we're talking about, and we're talking about using fund balance to do facilities and maintenance related items that may not get done for 2 or 3 or 4 years, 5 years down the road. Just like we did the salary study. See, we finally, and that I can't recall, that was done last year, 2011, 2012, when we did the salary study. And see, we're just now getting around to trying to get that money for the teachers. What if we spend $562,000 3 years from now? Well, the bond didn't pass in May. I'm not being pessimistic, but I'm trying to be realistic, because you can't make a voter vote for something. They got to vote for it. They got to want it. But just take the devil's advocate and say that it fails. The needs, as I said, are still there. But how are we going to address those needs at that point? I don't see the commissioners giving us $20,000, $30,000 for the next 10 years, each year, over and above what we're getting to take care of these issues. Does anybody else see them giving us $20 million a year for facilities and maintenance, when we had such a hard time with them getting what we've got already, because nobody wants to raise the tax rate? That's a whole new subject there. I agree. Nobody wants to raise the tax rate. But, when you got all of these things that you got to do, what happens? That might not have been so politically correct, for some of those folks, that don't want to spend money to take care of things. But you have to take care of them sooner or later, because all they're going to do is just get worse and worse and worse. And guess what worse always ends up doing? Costing you more. And so it needs to be done as soon as we can. But for the time being, though, I think that we need to sit back and breathe a little bit and see how the bond referendum turns out in May. And then, because see, the whole ball game could change then. If it passes, well, we've got the study done, we've spent the money, and all we need to do now is get the commissioners to come up with it. But just because we do the study doesn't mean they're going to come up with it, and doesn't mean that the needs are going to go away, because they're not. But this is a lot. This is a lot to ask for the school district, in my opinion, coming out of our board budget. Because I like to see things like we did tonight earlier, the strings program, the dance program, all the things that we're doing that's good for students, putting the money in the classroom. I like to see that. And I don't think facilities and maintenance is the school board's fiduciary responsibility. I think that falls on the commissioners. And so for us to use our money for that is my question. And that might be something for some of the other board members to think about and look into and all. But since it's on, our items for discussion for something next week, then, like I said, I'm only one. But those are just a few of my thoughts on that item. And really in all of them in that particular matter, they'll all fall in the same category, because they're all dependent upon bond money. So that's where I'm at. So, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Shue. And, quite frankly, we may not have to wait till May. We may know in 2 weeks it may not make it out of, they may not approve to put it out to the public. So, Mr. Shoemaker.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Lynn, but I disagree. We have a fiduciary responsibility to give our commissioners the most accurate assessment of our facilities that we have right now. We've been using a process where our maintenance folks go out into the field and kind of guess at costs and go around and guess at what the status is. Now we're going to enlist a professional firm. Now, this is just number one. I'm only talking about number one. The other three could come in different stages, but only number one. But now we're going to have a codified book. Someone's going to go out and look at our equipment, look at our buildings, look at the status of everything we have, compile it all together, and put out a final report that says, based on this date, this is where Cabarrus County schools were. This is how far behind the 8 ball you are. This is how far behind you are on getting your maintenance done. I can tell you now, If you look back in our numbers for the last 10 years, we've been underfunded. We're getting farther and farther behind. Our buildings are literally rotting away. Now, we've got new schools, and we're doing the best we can to take care of them. Our maintenance people are doing a very good job with what they have, but they're underfunded and understaffed, believe it or not. But that's a whole nother 9 yards. If we don't get this study done, then that means the next budget cycle, which is 14-15, is what we'll have to wait for to present our request to the commissioners. Unfortunately, we have no revenue sources, and we don't have control of the revenue or how it gets divvied up. But we can tell them, this is where we are. And then we'll have to have a conversation with them about, look, how are you going to mitigate where we are, and what is our plan? Now we can come to them with a realistic plan. If you don't do this investment and you don't try to find out where you really are, then you're doing the taxpayers a disservice. We've done them a disservice because we haven't been able to put to them where we really are. And we've got to find a way to guide our commissioners to come to some realization that if you continue down this path, we're going to get so far behind it, we're going to literally have to replace schools that didn't need to be replaced because we didn't do enough maintenance on them. And the maintenance costs to fix the school are more than what it would cost just to go ahead and just replace it. And that's where we're headed if we keep deferring this and kicking the proverbial can down the road as we've seen before. But we've got to at least get them to understand where we are. Then greater minds have to get together and develop the plan that gets us out of this hole. And the plan's not going to get you out of the hole in 1 year, 2 years. It might be a 10 or 12-year process to get out of this maintenance hole that we've dug for ourselves. I've been doing a lot of study on what maintenance costs should we be looking at. And some things that I see out there says based on the asset value of your facilities, you should be getting about 2% of the asset values of your facilities for maintenance. Well, that's $20 million if we're based on $1 billion. Well, to make up, that's $20 billion to take care of existing maintenance every year, $20 million. Well, we're at what, 5.8? But on top of that, I got to fix things. So I put the 20 million in every year, and I'm just going to keep the status quo, but I'm not going to improve where I needed to be. You have to put something on top of that to get to whatever the 10-year fix is going to be, or the 15-year fix. But you've got to pick a time, and you've got to do it. This study gets us onto page 1. We're not on page 1. We've got a book that Dave and Lynn go out with their folks, and they go and create this book and try to tell us what this number is. And it was 180 last year. I'm sure it's more than 180 this year. And I don't know what the percentage increase was, but I'll guarantee you the percentage increase is at least 5 to 6% beyond where it was last year. 5 or 6% is is that 12 years? What's the rule of 72? 12 years. So in 12 years it doubles. So in 12 years you're at $360 million in the hole because you never addressed it. And you can't keep going like this. We've got to draw a line in the sand, and then we've got to work with them. I mean, I understand that. I don't want my taxes raised any more than anybody else does, but at the same time, I don't want to pay for brand new schools that are only 20 years old because we didn't do any maintenance on them, or we didn't have the money to do maintenance. That's a better word. We didn't have the capacity to do maintenance because we didn't have the people or the money to do it. That's what we're faced with, and that's what this first study is all about, trying to help us in that way. So that's where I stand.
Thank you, Mr. Shoemaker. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Whitkey.
A couple of things, if I could just respond. And it goes beyond, it really goes to the issues of 2, 3, 4, and 5. The reason those are listed and the reason they're important is that right now, honestly, what is on the bond referendum discussion is a number on a piece of paper that says we're going to do something at a school. The what is what we haven't decided. When you go out and meet with taxpayers and you go out and meet with people interested in the community trying to explain what your bond referendum is, that's why you need this work done. That's the only way you can sell it. You have to give people something to look at and something to answer their questions with. Without it, you're not going to sell the bond referendum. That's my opinion, but that's the way I feel.
Yep. Okay, Ms. Carpenter, and keep in mind, we're going to have an opportunity to go back and discuss items 2 through 5. So
Sure.
Go ahead, Ms. Carpenter.
Okay, and that was one of the things that I was wanting to discuss, because some of my questions have already been answered. One of the things you're going to go, you've put an advertisement in on the price to try to come up with, getting some people to bring some prices forward. One of the things I have, of course, the cost of the thing coming out of our fund balance. Again, I would much rather it, $500,000 not come out of my fund balance. But again, I see where our need is. As Lynn, you just mentioned, some of these things are going to possibly be on the bond referendum. We've got to tell the public, what are we going to do at Coulter and Webb? If, and those parents are going to ask, what building am I going to get? What am I going to get? If I vote for this, what am I going to get? Sure. We've got to be able to tell them. One of my big questions are, and I asked Blake earlier today, I was really concerned with Glenn Center. I know a lot of work has been done there. I know they looked at the structure, the education foundation. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I want to take what has already been done and utilize that. I know you said, well, a doctor doesn't want to, use the same use the same thing. But I want to take some of that work, and that's why when I saw the cost of the Glenn Center and the cost of Central being the same amount, I know that we've not done a lot of work at Central, but I know that there's been a lot of stuff done, and I know they did the structure, they did, because a lot of these reports had come to us. And I want to make sure that we're utilizing what has been done and not be charged for something that's already been done. So that's why I thought that work may not be as expensive as what we've seen. Or is that being taken into consideration? Because I know that the Education Foundation, I don't know what they paid, what was done. Do you have any idea?
I know that they've talked with people about different projects and different work to be done at the center, at the Glenn Center, but I honestly have not, have not seen any studies that. Because
they come back to us, the foundation's great, da. So again, I don't want to reinvent the wheel or pay for something I don't need to pay for. So that's why I don't know how realistic that figure is, and I would not want to. We may be seeing something that we would not have to do. Again, I see the thing necessary with a referendum to see what was going to be done. Again, I personally was more, and again with Central, seeing what kind of projects we're looking at. If we're looking at just doing like we did at Concord, giving them a brand new cafeteria or giving them a brand new library, what we're seeing about giving them, I think, is what we need to do for the bond referendum. I could maybe see that with the study, but again, I'm concerned with that much money being involved. But let's see what shakes down, see what the rest of the board considers. But we do need to tell the public what they're going to get, or they're not going to vote for a bond referendum. Right. That's it in a nutshell. Nobody's going to go out and vote for something if they don't know what they're going to get. That's it. No, it won't pass. And no, they won't go out and vote for it. I know that. I've seen it happen. So I know that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. You talked a little bit about Central and some other things that I didn't hear you mention the item number one, the facility assessment study. Do you want to comment on that? And let me that's the piece where we'll get a formal document that shows the needs of all of those schools on a replacement type cycle and at what stage they need to be and that kind of thing. You didn't comment on that, so I wanted to make sure.
That at this point, I think right now the biggest thing that, I know we need to do that, but right now my biggest concern, and I think what is at the biggest concern right now and what we need to do immediately are 2, 3, 4, and 5, because that's what the bond referendum is, the biggest thing we've got to deal with right now. And to me, that's the most pressing thing. And the other, I mean, it's something we've got to do, but if we're talking money, that's something we've got to put out right now, and something time pressing wise, I think that 2, 3, 4, and 5 would be our most pressing thing that we've got to do immediately, need the fastest. And I know we've got to do the other, but I personally, I would rather hold off, because the other thing, everything's going to be contingent on everything else. And me, I would rather hold on to my bucks as long as I could and see where we're going with this thing until we see what everything shakes out.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Carpenter. Mr. Walter?
So we're talking about item number 1, the facility assessment studies. Where did $332,000 come from?
$8,500 a school.
8,500 hours a school.
The dollars a school.
Dollars a school.
Times, plus some additional costs where I thought they were needed for certain types of investigative work. But it's basically $8,500 times 30 the last time I checked, possibly a few more than that. But I believe it's 30, roughly 30 schools that we studied.
Just looking at it, looks like a very high dollar amount. I'd almost rather hire 2 people for a year for $100,000 to get the same results. I mean, we're saying that we can do it ourselves for these newer schools. We've got plenty of talent on staff, and if we don't have an immediate deadline to have this thing done, it just seems an awful lot. We have an immediate need for about that same amount to digitize some student records. Those are some critical needs too. So I'm not sure we're getting a lot. It looks like we're doing it's mostly inventory. We have spreadsheets that we've presented to the county that has a list of all the projects under 200,000. We have another thing of a list that has all the projects over 200,000. Those things have to be tackled first anyway.
I think one of the problems, and it was mentioned earlier, the idea of an independent study is very important in terms of giving credibility to what's proposed. The other thing that, and I appreciate the vote of confidence on our staff. However, keep in mind that our staff for the last 15 years that I know of, based on conversations that I've had with people, have been in a break-fix mode. We don't think in terms of, unfortunately, when you're in the swamp with alligators, you're really not thinking about what you're doing for your next vacation. And that's sort of what our problem is. We are so focused on fixing that sign that isn't attached correctly, instead of wondering whether or not the system needs to be replaced because it doesn't work correctly. And that's what this study gets at. You are hiring professional architects and engineers to look at the problem and assess what the big picture issue is. Not just the fact that it's broken and needs to be repaired. That our people can take care of. They do it all the time. But it's really taking the long view and really seeing across the schools what we're really needing. One example is controls. We talk about the fact that we did a half a dozen schools HVAC controls, and that was a great thing. It was. We need to do another 20 schools. The question is, how do you do them? Because as Dave has found out, unfortunately, because he's been working with mechanical guys quite a bit, almost every school is a unique case unto itself in terms of what it has in the way of mechanical equipment and a system and how you can implement the controls to make it work properly. But to reduce the use of energy and to control that use of energy in schools and to make them more effective, that's one of the things we have to do. But we need pricing on that. We need a good assessment of what we've got in the buildings and what can be used to make them more energy efficient. That's not something our staff can do, in my opinion. I believe that's what you need engineers for. And that's where I go with that discussion.
Okay, and then my other point being, if we do go forward to this, I mean, we have a policy that says we have a planning to address facility needs policy, which comes up with a long-range plan. And it doesn't appear that we've approved or voted on one since 2007. Is that correct? I mean, I think that if we're going to do something like this, it needs to end up as a long-range plan that we're approving. Because a lot of the things that you had mentioned here are part of that policy. So those are my thoughts on this particular one.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Walter. I think there's a couple different things there that I want to make sure that we're kind of clear on. The industry standard, what we're talking about doing is having people that would operate under the industry standard of estimated useful life and remaining useful life of everything within the building envelope and really even beyond. I guess we're talking hardscape too and everything outside. And at some point, you're right, it sounds kind of simple. Well, you have a chart, it has a number, we walk around, but it's really a little more complex than that because to determine what kind of shape something is in that may be either ahead or beyond what the industry standard is for that particular device and how much life it has left to give us. And so that, and go back to something that Jeff mentioned of what the standard is of who gets to decide, well, what do you replace or whatever. It's an industry standard. It comes from the construction industry and the tables are out there. I mean, you can Google it and you can find them of what, this chiller should last this, the carpet should last, under this circumstance, this many years or whatever. And what we're talking about doing is putting together a document that can not only take the snapshot of where we are today, and these are the items that need to be replaced now, and these need to be replaced in a year or two, but it sets these guys up to make the document kind of a revolving type document that when a new school is added, you add those devices in, and when something is fixed, you roll that device off, or whatever the case may be. And in our chair-vice chair meeting, the county has asked us, they wanted to see our facilities on a little longer term than what we've currently been giving them. And they asked for 5 years. So this is going to pull a little bit of double duty because it's going to help us with that part too, to give it in the format that they want. And so they can see as their rolling budget is coming through 5 years out, we've got 5 chillers that need to be replaced. Based on an actual study that was done by an independent person. It's not Dave walking around with a clipboard and say, well, I think that one needs to be replaced. No offense to Dave, but that takes a very specialized person to be able to make those determinations. So, with that being said, I have massive heartburn over the cost. There's just no way to get over that. And I'm and I'm not even down to 2, 3, 4, and 5 yet. I'm still on item number 1. But the upside is I've seen the actual report, the thick notebook. Mr. Hughes is here who showed it to me, and it's massive. The study that was done for Union County, and it's impressive. I mean, it shows you, it tells you exactly where you are and where you need to go, and so. It sounds like a ton when you say $8,500, but in my mind, when you start talking about the level of competency and education and the hourly rate of what these guys get, walking around, spending the time in the school, you're going to get to $332 or that $8,500 pretty quick. The one thing I was not aware of, or I guess I missed when we had talked about this previously or in the subcommittee, was pulling those schools out. And I mean, it makes sense. You don't want to do double duty, but when we get to 2, 3, 4, and 5, I mean, we're really doing something different. So there's a little bit of a catch-22 there because we still need to know where we are facilities-wise in case we don't get to do anything. But we've also got to have the plan to try to figure out where we're going to go. So that we'll talk about that in just a second. But does any